So I made the horrible mistake of agreeing with my wife's suggestion that we watch the entire Star Wars series in chronological order. Steve and I were just talking about this behind the scenes. And even though I've just finished the 4th episode, which was the first episode that came out in the theaters. Even though I've done this, I still feel like when Steve and Bill talk about Star Wars that I've never seen any of the movies.
A couple of things. Number one, do try the machete order sometime. Just wait a couple of years, then try the machete order. It cuts it down to 5 movies and in a much better order. You can Google that, folks. Star Wars, the machete order. Also, you were talking about how awful, how intolerable Anakin Skywalker was, and you just kind of just dying for him to become Darth Vader so he can actually be evil instead of just have. There's a great story that Carrie Fisher would tell about filming Star Wars. I'm not going to call it A New Hope. I'm going to call it Star Wars. That George Lucas only had 2 directions for his actors, and it was faster or more energy. And at one point during the shooting, he lost his voice, and 19-year-old Carrie Fisher got him 2 little bells to ring. One was labeled faster, and the other was labeled more energy. And I'm thinking by the time they got around to doing Attack of the Clones with Christian Hayden as Anakin Skywalker, his only direction was, could you make it even more whiny little bitch?
You know, it's tough to stomach. And one of the things I guess I've discovered, because you have, sort of childhood memories or teenhood memories in this case, where like in my mind, that first Star Wars movie was a great movie. Oh, yeah. But you watch it now and you're like, this is not so much like an acting thing.
No, it is not a well-acted.
Nor was it a writing thing in the sense of dialogue.
There was one great moment of dialogue in Star Wars. It was one of those things where not only did it set the scene perfectly, but it defined each of the characters and the relationship to one another. And I love this moment, and I'll bet George didn't write it himself. It's when they're trying to escape from the detention block after rescuing Leia, except, they're still stuck in the detention block, and there's a dead-end hallway that they're trapped in. Stormtroopers are piling in, shooting at them. And Leia says, "You got in here. You didn't have a plan for getting us out?" And Han says, "He is the brains, sweetheart," pointing at Luke. And Luke goes, "Why?" It was perfect.
And after the lightsaber fight where Anakin Skywalker winds up on fire with like one limb left, laying on this lava flow, and his old buddy is walking away from him, and you're just looking at that, you're going like, no, nobody lives through that. It's not possible for anybody. At the very least, I think instead of Darth Vader, he should have been renamed Lual Cinder.
No, the Galactic Empire had galactic health care, so they took very good care of him.
Yeah. Yes. And that's the thing. Then they show that scene. There's like a little montage of where they're kind of putting limbs back onto him, and he's screaming in agony. And then they put this helmet on him, and all of a sudden he's walking around. He's able to cross his arms over his 3rd-degree burn chest.
The helmet muffles the screams.
Yes. So anyway, it's really a horrible series of films, but I have agreed to watch them all. And the fight scenes are kind of fun. Although yep. I will acknowledge that old Ben Kenobi fighting Darth Vader was a little ridiculous. I mean, the whole lightsaber fight was kind of like this. Like, because he's like in his 70s. He can't really do much. My opinion only. So this is the Backstage episode for Right Angle, and we have done many more than 9 of these over the course of these many years. And we are, this week, there's a lot of news breaking, and some of it is so good that we figured only Stephen Green should deserve the privilege of hosting shows about those stories. So we're going to let Steve go first and have his cream of the crop pick.
By letting me go first, you mean you guys voted behind my back to make this my week?
And short straw is the phrase that comes to mind, yes.
No, this is such a huge week. I actually have 3 or 4 potential topics, which means I don't have to do a lightning round this week. I'm still doing one, though. I don't have to.
Thank God.
Stop doing that. You get my hopes up and then you crush my spirit.
I do. I really do. No, okay, so I've got, 3 or 4 topics here. One of them, Scott, it might be more up your alley, so let me throw this out there, and you can claim dibs on it if you want. There's this huge new study out by this group called Bright. Oh, shoot, I just
Beam.
had...
Bright Beam.
Yeah, Bright Beam. It's a nonprofit educational research institution of some kind, and they seem to be very progressive based on their urging of better progressive government. But their complaint is that the education gap, the performance gap, the testing gap between white students and minority students is much greater in progressive cities than it is in conservative run
The gap
cities.
is greater, meaning that the minority kids aren't doing as well.
Yeah, and I dug into some of the numbers, and here in Colorado Springs, the performance gap is half what it is in Minneapolis, and I found this via the Minneapolis Tribune.
Well, the last thing in the world you want is to have your voter base coming up with too much education. Like you don't want to. You don't want them to get too smart because they may no longer be part of your voter base.
Yeah, so I thought that was be a interesting thing to talk about. The other one was which was it? Oh, Joe Biden was born a poor black child. I like that one.
Yeah, let's go with that. It's got a nicer ring to it. Can you explain it?
Did he have a special purpose, though, Steve? Did he have a special purpose?
The actual quote was Biden saying he was raised in the black church. But if I do this,
they will never end. These
with
people,
Pastor
they will never
Corn Pop.
end.
Yeah, but if I do this for my actual segment, of course my lead is going to be Joe Biden says he was born a poor black child. Because how would I not go with the Steve Martin reference? I mean, that's half of my thing. It's a 30-year thing and all the rest. We've got Trump's new peace plan was just revealed for the Middle East.
I saw part of the news conference of that, and just like doing the news conference for the new Israeli-Palestinian peace plan hours after they indict Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, well, the thing is that this is what makes it kind of a big deal. A couple of things. One, he had 3 ambassadors from Arab nations there for the announcement. Saudi Arabia wasn't one of them, which would have been a huge deal. But this thing wouldn't have gone forward without at least some tacit Saudi approval. The other thing was both Benjamin Netanyahu and I think it's Benny Gantz. We don't know which one of them is going to be the next leader of Israel because they've had 2 elections and they're going to have a third now. But they have both signed on. They're both there. So it doesn't matter which one of them becomes, well, I think it does matter. But in terms of Trump's peace plan, it doesn't matter which one of them becomes the next leader of Israel because they've both pre-signed off on this thing. It's got a couple of tough pills for the Palestinians to swallow, like making Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, I guess I should say, the capital of Israel, and no resettlement inside of Israel for Palestinian refugees. But it also includes a lot of carrots, including $50 billion in development money straight into what would become Palestine if they meet other various conditions like stopping support of terrorism and stuff like that.
So essentially, it's the kind of 2-state solution that a lot of Trump supporters in the run-up to the election thought that's not where we were going with this.
I don't remember that.
Well, I mean, as far as foreign policy goes, nobody thinks that at least the people on the conservative side don't think that the Palestinians can ever put together a workable 2-state solution. And although our buddy Andrew Klavan,
maybe they can't. This puts the ball in their court, though.
Yeah, and were there any representatives from the Palestinian Authority at the announcement or involved in the process? Did you catch that?
Well, if by involve you mean did they throw a riot today? Yes.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah, there was rioting.
So there's that. Okay.
Yeah. And I had another one, and now I'm not sure I can remember what it was. But that's 3 of them. So do you guys have a preference here?
You got to admire, by the way, the moxie of the President of the United States, who is making a big announcement about the sort of longest standing dispute in foreign relations history in the middle of his own impeachment. It's like, yeah, I'm being impeached, but let's go over here and make peace in the Middle East.
Well, why not? Congress was cutting deals with him, big deals. While they were doing the whole impeachment thing in November and December, they gave him everything he wanted on defense. They gave him everything he wanted on the NAFTA replacement deal that I can never remember the name of because NAFTA is easy to say and the New Deal is awful to say.
I think it's called Napster.
Napster. I like that. It's got a ring to it. I think I've heard it before. Anyway, they were giving him everything he wanted, which means the Democrats in Congress, Nancy Pelosi, Jerry Nadler, and Adam Schiff, they all know that impeachment's a sham and that Trump's going to be around at least until next January, but probably for 4 more years after that.
Fascinating. Oh, so you're saying which topic? What do you think, Bill?
Oh, yeah. Which topic? Do you like?
I like Biden as a black child personally. That's just me.
I think that would be my intro to his latest week of word vomit. And can this guy please step down and just take care of his own health?
Because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like fun. And then
just in case I hadn't made it clear, my members, let
me make a suggestion here,
sorry.
Steve. Let me make a suggestion that your members episode could be one of these other great topics that you have proposed, like the Middle East peace thing or something like that. Anything but what you're about to say.
I really, really like that idea, Scott, and I'm not going to do it.
Great.
Okay, shocking.
I got headlines lined up for you guys, and I can't throw those away. You can't just delete a file, Scott.
Well, I know that our members live for this moment every 3 weeks when they find out what Florida Man is doing these days.
Actually, I will give you one tiny spoiler. There are no Florida Man headlines.
I think we're being set up
in this week's selection. No, there really aren't. I might set you up, but I wouldn't lie to you.
That's right. And then there's a thin difference. Oh, look, I'm losing my microphone here. There we go. Okay.
Where am I? Okay, there it is.
So I will admit that this topic that I'm about to propose is about as thin and scrawny and loathsome a topic as I could come up with. Yes, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is now like he's winning some polls. Not that that's really winning anything, but he's leading in some Iowa polls, New Hampshire polls, and I heard this morning a California poll. And I pay more attention, not that I drill down on these things like some sort of fanatic Moneyball loser, but the state by state polls are the ones that are more interesting to me than the national polls, since hint hint. We don't elect the president on a national basis. You may want to look that up in the Constitution. Anyway, so it's suddenly Jonathan Chait has a piece in New York Magazine expressing shock that Bernie Sanders has a legitimate shot at being the party's nominee. He refers to Sanders as the riskiest nominee since Barry Goldwater for the Republicans in 1964. And so I just thought we might want to game this out, like what the campaign looks like vis-a-vis Sanders, or I think if it's not Sanders, it's Biden, and actually I think it's Biden. But let's take a look at how that breaks down, because essentially what you're doing here, if you're the Democratic Party nominating a guy like Sanders, is you're saying, look, we've tried what we thought was electable in the past, and that didn't really work out. Our party is not able to appeal to the middle by getting electable people. So screw that. Let's go hard left, and let's see if we can fan the base and get enough of those hard left people, mostly young people, to show up at the polls to make a difference.
They're going to go full Democrat, and everyone knows you never go full Democrat.
Speaking of being born a poor black child. So anyway, that's my suggestion that we.
I like the topic. I just have a question for you, Scott. Did you break Bill prior to this when you were taping Bill Whittle Now or something?
Bill has gone mute. He has selective mutism.
Because of climate change.
Is it selective? Is that the word? Selective?
Yeah.
Okay. But by the way, can I just say
you people?
Two things. One is in reference to Bill. who did a title slide for our recent Bill Whittle Now video with a cartoony picture of Hillary Clinton on it, and it's about the new documentary that kind of is laudatory about Hillary Clinton because it came from her video and her suggestion. But anyway, Bill apparently could not fit the whole word hagiography on one line.
He had to hyphenate.
It had to go with hagiography.
Now, is that the one where
that
you
made my morning, Bill? It really did. I died when I saw that.
Was that the one that you and Mark, our editor, were texting back and forth about?
I submitted it just like always, and he said, that one I have to tell you made me laugh.
Yeah.
And Mark doesn't think anything's funny. So that's impressive. So anyway, so there's that, which I'm sure will make a stir. And then on the other hand, my headline that I wrote for the episode about Greta Thunberg and her being crushed that nobody...
Brilliant.
What's that?
It was brilliant. Greta Expectations is
it's only marvelous. A visual. It's not an auditory kind of thing. But visually, it looks like I just had dyslexia and spelled a word wrong.
Yeah, if only our actual content were as good as these title cards, I think we'd really have something.
That's the key. And once you hook them in, then they just stay watching because they're hoping another YouTube ad will come up. So that's how we hook them in. Okay, so there's my topic, and any Greta expectations you may have had are now shattered. Bill Whittle, you get the final swipe at this. What would you like to do this week on Right Angle?
Well, you're covering how Bernie's suddenly winning at the polls, and people are starting to say, oh my God, what if he actually wins the nomination? And I thought I'd talk about how Bernie was winning at the polls, and what if he actually won the nomination?
Are you serious?
But here's my angle on it. I thought there is certainly Bernie Sanders is the most unpleasant candidate in American history. Not just the most unpleasant in terms of character, but the most unpleasant looking just in terms of that. And then I thought to myself, no.
What? There's someone even worse?
Yes, there is.
And does she happen to think that he's even worse?
No. There is somebody worse. There's somebody who was actually the nominee for president of the United States who was more unlikely and ridiculous than Bernie Sanders. Any guesses?
Hang on. Let me think.
I'm going to say Donald Trump.
The Democrats never dug up the corpse of Stalin and ran him as a zombie, did they?
Not yet.
Then I got nothing.
1872, Ulysses S. Grant versus Horace Greeley.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Even the
I think Greeley had the same voice.
The Democratic nominee for the Democratic Party was a liberal Republican. And if you look at a picture of Horace Greeley, you will realize...
What's that character called?
There's a picture.
Cthulhu.
There's a picture, yeah. There's a picture of Grant and Horace Greeley next to each other. They're like kind of looking at the camera. Both of them was the style in that day. And Horace Greeley looks like he was like the first ever 19th century cloning attempt of Ulysses S. Grant. You know, he just looks like something.
He's got sideburns around his neck. What?
He had tuft of white hair coming out from under here.
Yeah, see, normally I don't think men should shave their chests, but I make an exception when it comes to him.
When it's sprouting out your high shirt collar.
It wasn't just neck beard. It was like chest beard. Horace Greeley. And Horace Greeley was the nominee for the Democrats, ran against Ulysses S. Grant, popular Republican. And I think I was actually thinking, how, sometimes history just has these weird quirks. Lincoln was kind of a quirky nomination in 1860. Yeah. A number of other people were more likely than him. And everybody hated each other one so much that Lincoln was the one they hated least. And so, it got to be Lincoln. But Horace Greeley, when I read the Grant biography, I simply couldn't believe it was real, that he actually ran for president as a Democrat. Couldn't believe it. But
plus, he was a journalist, wasn't he?
Yes, he had no political experience like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has been in politics for 30 years, but he has no political experience.
I could just see that Horace Greeley having Bernie Sanders' voice I could just, I could see him in a debate going, so you're a big Civil War hero. What kind of, it wasn't a civil war. The uncivility of that war was legendary.
Yep. And it really is. If you look at Horace Greeley and Bernie Sanders, there really is almost a separated at birth quality. So I'm going to go with that, actually.
I can see the thumbnail slide already.
Well, he died right after the election.
Yes, he did.
And not a moment too soon.
No, he did within 4 or 5 days after the election or something.
I'm going to say 3 weeks. It was November 29 of 1872. Yeah.
Well done, Steve.
Oh, I pulled up Wikipedia because I had to see this guy. You said he was so ugly and you didn't do him justice.
He died of embarrassment, I reckon. But in any event, Horace Greeley. And,
So I'm still going to call mine the Sanders episode. Yours is the Greeley episode.
Yeah, I'll go with separated at birth.
And by the way, Greeley shot first.
So I'm basically going to say, look, has there ever been in history anybody as unphotogenic, unattractive, dark horse managed to actually get the nomination as Bernie Sanders? It couldn't be possible. Turns out, yes, there's something even more unlikely. And look, Warren's numbers are falling. Biden is going to continue to self-destruct because his faculties are failing fast. And Bernie really could be the only man standing. Then the question is,
the guy who had the heart attack in the middle of the campaign is the only man standing.
So the question then is, can Bernie Sanders defeat Ulysses S. Grant? That's the question. Kind of a nice irony there, too, because Grant was a man who was so persecuted for his faults and his gruffness and his drinking and his irrational behavior and all the rest of it. But Lincoln said, I can't spare this man. He fights. And Grant went on to win handily.
Yep. Wow.
Well, now, this should be some fun.
I was about to quote Jonathan Chait, but then I remember that's part of Scott's segment.
I don't have any Jonathan Chait quotes. I'm just going from that one idea that he mentioned. I'm not going to use any quotes, so feel free.
Oh, well, good.
They even have the same glasses.
There was a line in his column, something about painting the Democratic or Bernie Sanders agenda as too radical, and I'm like, that's like pinning a hammer and sickle on the Soviet flag. They're already there.
We need more hammer.
No, you said, it was painting it as too radical. Yeah, I think that was fine. I'll have to look that up because it was
good fodder. He's from Vermont, too, apparently.
Jonathan Chait is?
No, Horace Greeley.
Horace Greeley, also from Vermont. Talk about separated at birth.
Yeah.
You have one of those things that the eerie parallels between Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. They were like... what was it that...
It's New Hampshire.
What's that?
New Hampshire.
Oh, he's actually from New Hampshire?
Listen to this. Horace Greeley was born on February 3rd, 1811 on a farm about 5 miles from Amherst, New Hampshire. He could not breathe for the first 20 minutes of his life. It is suggested that this deprivation may have caused him to develop Asperger's syndrome.
Wow. And yet, he was able to run for president. Very impressive.
Badly.
Well, we're going to call this episode of Backstage to a close here some 16 minutes before last week's episode ended, I think.
Oh, no, that's too soon.
There was also like a whole other episode last week. But we are forever grateful for our friends who make this possible. And let me, this is not one final plea, but I know that there are some people right now who are watching this who have been thinking, I should probably sign up for that cruise, because even though Bill and Scott and Steve are going to be there, it could be great. It still could be a good time.
Anybody remember the episode of Friends where I can't remember what the reason was, but everybody had ordered these huge meals and then got mad at each other and had to leave the table except for Joey, and they bring all the food to him and he tells the waiters, "You're about to see something special," as he starts digging into the first plate. Folks, you're going to see me at an open bar. It's going to be something special.
So there are still some places left, although we only have a limited time really to sign people up for this cruise. And at a certain point, you're going to be standing on the dock waving your ascot at the departing stern of the ship. That's right. So we want to make sure that you don't miss that. I understand some of our buddies are getting together at a hotel in Miami. The travel agent can help you hook up with that hotel. But they're getting together the night before because they don't want to show up late for the ship because, once that ship sails, it's almost a proverb. But anyway, if you haven't done that yet, if you haven't signed up for it, it's going to be a great time. Yes, we're going to do live versions of our shows. Yes, there's going to be lots of Q&A opportunities. Yes, there's going to be lots of casual conversation with Bill and Steve and myself and our lovely brides. But really, I think what you're going to love most about it is just the sense that you're not alone. I mean, you're going to be together with a bunch of people and you're going to say, holy cow, there's like a whole army of people out there who think the way I do and who are nice to be around and who are fun and funny and enjoyable company. So I know you're going to enjoy that. Plus just all the great things about being on a cruise, just being out on the water and stopping for a day at Coco Cay, a private beach that's practically an amusement park, and just enjoying everything that's wonderful about a Royal Caribbean cruise. Don't miss this one. We'll probably do one again next year too, because this one will be so popular, but you'll want to be able to say that you were one of the charter sailors, that you were one of the first aboard the good ship Whittle.
Yes. You were on Magellan's first. You were on Magellan's first tour of the world.
And, we hardly lose any members to natives in the Philippines.
178 men went out and 18 came back, something along those lines.
I can't get through a promo of this event without Bill making some sort of analogy to some tragedy on the high seas.
Maritime catastrophe. Yeah.
There's hardly any cannibalism on a Whittle cruise.
Let me just say, for those of you concerned about Bill's mental health, come along on the ship, cheer him up. He needs somebody who can tell him that it's not going to be like Magellan's cruise.
Cannibalism is not strictly forbidden, but it's definitely not recommended.
So
we only encourage it when the buffet is closed.
Mark will take all of this out in post. It's okay. He'll just leave the good, positive things in. Ladies and gentlemen, we're grateful for the members of BillWhittle.com who've made this program possible. So for Bill and Steve, I'm Scott Ott. We'll see you this week on Right Angle.